What's up, everybody? It's guubums back with another comms video. So the B patch has been out for a couple days now, and I actually just spent 20 hours on stream playing like 40 games in a row. So I'm pretty comfortable with what I think the meta comps are going to be. There's also TFT Paris this weekend, so if you guys want to follow along with that, you're gonna want to know some of the kind of the better comps that people are playing in the meta. And yeah, without further ado, let's kind of get into it. The very first comp I have, and it's also probably the best comp in the game right now, is going to be like Void Kaisa. And this comp is like really straightforward. The only issue is you just have to play it. You just have to have Void in the early game. And the reason why you have to have Void in the early game is because Rift Herald's unlock condition is you need to have Void active in player combat for 8 rounds. So if you have it as early as 2-1 and you never take it out, then you will acquire your first Rift Herald by 3-5. And Rift Herald is obviously your main tank for this comp. Your main carry is going to be Kaisa, whose unlock condition actually is kind of clunky in that you actually have to go 8, probably sack around, and then get Kaisa, and then roll, right? So it is quite clunky. The way people have kind of gone around this is just like playing heavy econ, and in which case they are allowed to kind of like go 8 on wolves, which is like stage 3 neutrals, and then they would like 3 item a random like Kog'Maw, Vayne, doesn't matter, Kog'Maw, Vayne, Caitlyn, any of these long shots, and then that would unlock Kaisa, and then they could roll the following round. That being said, like you need a lot of gold to do something like that, so even like just a basic econ augment on your average game isn't going to kind of like enable that to work. So most of the time you are just going to sack a life on stage 4 to unlock Kaisa. Like that being said, like you can win with a like trying to meet her unlock conditions, but it's just gonna be difficult, right? Because not only do you have to 3 item a random long shot, most of the time it's gonna be Kog'Maw. It's also that you can't exactly roll like before you unlock Kaisa, right? Obviously, we want to be rolling for both Kaisa and Rift Herald at the same time. So yeah, now that we have the unlock conditions out of the way, I want to like talk about how this comp actually plays. So a lot of people are just playing this with like heavy econ, not only because of the thing I mentioned just now, but also because this comp also can unlock Baron, but you have to go level 10. And once you've unlocked Baron, the win rate on this comp is like pretty high. It's like probably in the 30s, maybe close to 40%, which obviously is an incredibly high win rate. But like getting to level 10 is not an easy task. So, but that being said, I've seen people go triple econ, play for this, and then just play for Baron at 10. You don't always win, but obviously you are going to be quite strong once you have that set up online. The itemization for this comp is also rather specific, which kind of enables or kind of like encourages you to loss streak a little bit, just because it's difficult to get these items. You do want to go Rageblade, Gunblade +1. The third item generally is going to be Rageblade on Kaisa, and then Rift Herald's Biss is going to be something like Spirit Visage and Declaw, and then plus a mana tank item. So any of the mana tank items are good on him. His best items are always going to be mana tank items. So Vow, Redemption, or sorry, Vow, Spirit Visage, and Adaptive Helm are all going to be fantastic on him. So otherwise, we want to talk about the composition a little bit. So a lot of people just play like Vertical Void with this, which judging by not only like personal experience with this comp, but also just by all the like data tracking on these comps, 6 Void and like Vertical Void in general is just going to be really weak, which also tracks with kind of how the set's been playing so far, right? Vertical comps are just intentionally weaker this set, meaning you want to be able to optimize your comp to play the best units possible. And if we're doing that, then pretty much the main 4 units we're going to be playing here are going to be Kog'Maw, Kaisa, Cho'Gath, and Rift Herald. And then we can fill out the rest of our comp with any high value units as we see fit. But also sometimes you want to be able to fill out the remaining units with like something cheap, right? Something you have in the mid game. So Nico, Vi, Seraphine kind of comes into play here. Sometimes you can actually just play Mal's, and then we can actually play 6 Void if it makes sense to, right? Like obviously, as soon as you're stable, you should stop rolling. This is just true for TFT in general. And this comp can be quite stable on 6 Void, and you can play 6 Void for most of the game. But mind you, if you are going to go that route, where you don't play 6 Void, I would still highly recommend you hold Malzahar, but also especially a Rek'Sai on your bench. Just because if you ever end up going to 10, you still want to play Baron Nashor. So now, talking about Baron Nashor real quick, Baron Nashor is actually the same thing, right? Like once you go level 10 to play Baron Nashor, you have to have 9 Void in, or 8 Void. You have to have every other Void unit. I don't know exactly how it works, but you have to play every other Void unit in, and then Baron unlocks as soon as you're level 10, and then you roll once and you pick up Baron, right? So once you've done that, you actually want to drop out of 9 Void again. Once you have Baron, though, we have 3 carries. So now it's time to talk about a little bit about how Void works. The way Void works is that at 2 Void, you get 1 mutation, which is essentially an item that doesn't take up an item slot. It's like a buff. like a mutation that is. Then at 4 void you get 2 mutations, and at 6 void you get 3 mutations. So all of these are different for every player at every game. There is going to be a rough tier list of these kind of mutations, but for the most part, you should just follow like what they recommend you. So if you hover the mutation when you get it, when you unlock it, it's going to tell you the recommended users. I would just say for the most part, Kaisa's best one is the one that gives damage amp with stacking amp per auto. That one's going to be Kaisa's best. Baron's doesn't matter as long as it's the damage one, and Rift Herald's best one is going to be the one that gives it like more armor MR based on total max HP, right? So those are just going to be the best ones, but ultimately, like, if you choose to play this comp because your spot for it on stage 2 is good, then the mutations barely end up mattering. So once you get to level 10 and you play Baron Asher, you should almost never play 9 Void. The benefit to playing 9 Void is that it's cheap. So if you go 10 and you've kind of like sacked your whole game to reach level 10 to hit Baron, then it makes sense to play 9 Void because at that point you're probably quite poor. But as you kind of progress through the game, say like you start winning because obviously we've hit Baron, then you can actually pivot out of some of the weaker units. Again, Rek'Sai, Malzahar, and even to an extent Cho'Gath can be taken out just because it just makes more sense to play stronger units. So something I'll play pretty frequently is just going to be like we just start playing Shyvana, we start playing Senna. You know, stuff I've always told you to play in every comp. You can go, yeah, I said Shyvana already, and then Fiddlesticks. Like, all these units can just see play with on a board with Baron Asher, and it doesn't matter. Yes, like, the 9 Void enhances the mutations you get from the Void trait, but ultimately, like, playing all those garbage units isn't just going to, just isn't going to cut it for max cap. Like, Baron is not some sort of auto-win just by himself, so, like, it doesn't make sense to stack Baron up with all your resources. It does make sense to give Baron 3 items as soon as you get it, so if, say, you have, like, a Void Staff or a Morello, like a utility items on someone else in the meantime, like I just put it on Kog'Maw sometimes, honestly. I would just immediately move those to Baron if you don't have like quote unquote like good Baron items, which in most cases are just going to be pure damage. So I've seen a lot of people build melee items on him. So because he's already immune to CC, QSS and Titans kind of become low value, and he's not so much a tank, he actually is just like a pure damage carry. So I would like try to build triple damage on him if possible. Like loose healing items is fine, like BT and Hodge is like fine. I wouldn't like say they're like excellent, so I wouldn't like prioritize them by any chance, but by any means. But stuff like Giant Slayer, IE, Deathblade, all those are just going to be solid. Like Last Whisper, even Shojin to get him to cast a little bit faster. All those are fine. Like some tank items are fine. He's not so item dependent that like quote unquote getting Biz on this guy will ever be like a relevant consideration. But it's just like if you have some options to choose from on late game carousels, on late game anvils, it just makes more sense to kind of like pick towards damage items, because I know a lot of people kind of think he's kind of like this melee fighter champion, but he's not. He's just a carry with a lot of HP. So he's he kind of is a fighter, but he's just going to perform better with damage items. And then like the other stuff I have on the side of the board is just like stuff that you can play if you so choose. Along with like the same, I'd say core 5 units, just because Swain kind of pairs well with this setup really, really well. So I'd say core 5 units, obviously you have 3 more unit slots on 8. So any of these 3 packages kind of make sense. Like this is kind of your legendary package, so obviously Sylas doesn't actually have to exist by any means. So we just go Lucian, Fiddle, and plus anything random. Sometimes you just play 5 Void because that's your cheapest board. Sometimes we play 6 Void, again, that's your cheapest board. Whatever it is that you can stabilize on, is going to be the best way to go about this. And this comp, again, has high win rate with Baron. Some of the stats on this comp are going to be a little bit iffy, just because you have to like fiddle around with Baron and without Baron stats. But as long as you guys are aware of the fact that the strongest boards are infrequently stacking Vertical Void, you're going to perform a lot better with this comp. So like people are like, I get a lot of comments saying, oh, like this comp performs really bad without Baron. Like one, obviously that's true because like people will play for Baron. So if you play for Baron and then miss on Baron, obviously the spot that you're in is going to be worse, right? But also the stats heavily suggest that you should not be playing a lot of the garbage units that are with Void. So again, I really can't emphasize that enough, just because it is the most common question I get when I play this comp. And yeah, this is by far the best comp in the game. There's going to be 2 to 3 people playing this per lobby right now in Challenger. I don't know how it's going to look like in Paris, but for the most part, this is your go-to, like, spam this comp, just because it's a level 8 comp, doesn't really require level 9, has really high win odds, has a really good top 4 rate, and is not extremely augment dependent. It's only kind of like item dependent. So this is, I would say, your bread and butter if you're like kind of less experienced and trying to climb. The next comp is going to be Diana. So obviously I made a Diana video, so if you guys want to see like an in-depth kind of look about this comp, then feel free to check out that video. But this comp hasn't changed much since the patch. It's changed a little bit. I think judging by what I've understood the stats to represent, I think her best in slot is still going to be Titan's Rageblade BT. However, I've actually found more success like building stronger items in general. So like these items are relatively specific. So if you don't hit Diana early, you're going to struggle. You can actually like build random other items and then kind of like fit Diana with whatever you have at the time, and it's still going to perform quite well. So I had a couple games where I had something like Titans plus a mana item. Could be Shojin, could be adaptive, could be blue buff, and then a random item last. That item could be healing, Gunblade, BT obviously, but it could also just be damage. And the reason why like those builds will perform fine is because that kind of enables your item economy to work better for your other units. So in like, say I didn't build specific items for Diana, obviously that means I probably greeted my items a little bit less, meaning I have other items that actually function like for my board at the time, say like stage 3, stage 2, obviously, but also for my units as I make it to level 8, right? So like if my Seraphine has like, let's say, just say these three exact items, which are like loosely her bis, right? In the case of this comp, just because she is a utility support unit, she's going to perform really, really well. She's going to do a lot of damage, and she's also going to support your Diana in ways that kind of like mitigates the difference between her quote-unquote bis and like the items you end up putting on her. And the same is true of like for whatever tank you end up building. If you choose to build a tank, obviously most of the time you do have to build a tank just because you are going to reach, you're going to get tank components that you can't turn into your carry items, right? So obviously you just build your standard Swain or standard Taric, doesn't really matter, Spark, any tank item will do. It's just anything you built in the mid game. Again, you want to cap out this board with Sylas, just because Sylas is kind of like the inheritor to Diana's items. Obviously not Rageblade ideally, but BT Titans, Titans anything plus on Sylas is eventually going to be your max cap if you find a way to make it there. But this comp will struggle to win games if you're just playing around mostly Diana. But Diana's kind of like a good way to get you out of a low roll spot. Like if my stage 2 or stage 3 looking bad, then I'm like, okay, this is probably just going to be a Diana game. And you'll bail yourself out into like a 5th, 6th. Oftentimes, like, it's not going to look that great. But if you play this comp from a great spot, then sometimes you can cap out around Sylas, around Set, around these melee 5-cost carries that are just going to perform significantly better than the Diana. And you can still play kind of the Vi, Seraphine, obviously Nico and Sylas is the same thing, but Vi, Seraphine, Nico, Swain core. So this 4 core is kind of just gives you a lot of good utility traits. Arcanist, Defender, and Piltover are just insane. And then obviously Swain always enables Shyvana. We've talked about this already before, but one of these big 4 5-costs right now that are just performing really well, you can put on any comp, and obviously pairs really well with Swain. So yeah, as long as you play this core with like any random carry, it could be melee carry, it could be range carry, you're gonna do probably pretty good, assuming you can make it there with healthy HP, good items, and just decent tempo, right? So there's not, again, if you want to see more about this comp, I made a video about it. Not too much has changed, so again, you can go check that out. So next up, we have the kind of updated anti-carry board. So the old board that we were playing was like 6 Arcanist. If you read at the very least 4 Arcanists, it doesn't do pretty much anything. A lot of people, like, you're going to see 3 Arcanists here. One of the most common comments I get, again, is going to be like, why are you playing 3 Arcanists? Don't you know that it's 2 and 4? Yes, I do know it's 2 and 4, but if you look at 4, it doesn't really do anything. It gives 15 AP to Annie, Tivers, and Sylas at the price of a unit slot. That's not that much. That's like 1 component. Obviously, it's not that much. You're much happier just playing like other traits that kind of give more to your whole team. And yeah, so this is kind of like the comp. Someone came up with it. I don't know who came up with it, but it's definitely the strongest version of the anti-Sylas board right now. And most of the time you want to play this from Yordles because that unlocks both Kennen and Kobuko, which enable this endgame board. Sometimes you get to this without playing through Yordles, so you won't have these 2 unlocked, in which case you can find a way to supplement your board with things that make sense. As always, Shyvana and Swain will do really well. It's like totally fine to play 4 Arcanist. Again, the comment I made earlier was not so much that it's bad, more so that like you can play it, like it comes at a price, right? You can play it at the price of certain things, but like Kobuko and Kennen are something that you always have upgraded if you're playing Yordles, right? So these are just really efficient and high value 3-cost units, probably some of the best 3-cost units in the game for their role. So they're just going to do really well supporting your 5-cost board. And Wukong pretty much doesn't have to be upgraded, right? Like Wukong is functionally a Shen. In this case, obviously Wukong has more effective HP, so Wukong is going to perform better. But like if you're really poor, like I have played Shen 1 for the entire game as a pure synergy bot for this comp because it gives Bruiser and Ionia The Iron unit doesn't matter, but it supports your set a little bit, so it's like cool, I guess. But more so, the Bruiser is relevant for your team, just because again, you want to play units that support your best units. So itemization for this comp is as it was always. It's ideally like double to triple mana item any. Void Staff being like the best kind of like flex slot item, but like again, it could just be Death Cap. It could be you know, a third mana item instead of one of these, and it could be Archangels. It can be literally anything like Gunblade. Even at this like any point is fine. Just make sure you have to have at least around 2 mana items. Like if you go something like Shojin, Rageblade, like Void Staff, like something like this will do, but this is not optimal, right? But like this actually will do. So if you're early and middle game, kind of like builds around these items and you can streak a bit with it, or if you can maybe save some HP with it, it is fine to go these items and place it like this. As long as your items elsewhere or your tempo is good, you will be able to win the game with setups like this pretty like easily. As per usual with these comps, like any Sylas comp, you want to just cap out around Sylas. Sylas Biss is always going to be like JG Hodge plus something random. Like honestly, I think it's GA or like Titan, something defensive or something that helps in cast. Like I don't even know if this is his true Biss. Honestly, it's like hard to tell. It seems to be Jewel Gauntlet just because Jewel Gauntlet best enables him to like one-shot enemy backliners, which will allow him to obviously take out carries. That just wins you the fight within like 20 seconds into the fight. But I do kind of just like giving him some mana. Blue buff, adaptive, always works. Something defensive so he doesn't die. Obviously he jumps in, so Edge of Night helps. When he jumps in, your unit that the enemy carry is targeting dies, and then they switch to Sylas because Sylas becomes the closest unit. So, I don't know. Sylas build is relatively flexible, and you shouldn't be too focused on building his quote-unquote Biss for most of the game, just because it's not a unit that you unlock until quite late. And, yeah. You want to outfit your set with these kind of like carry items as per usual, and then your Tibbers with tank items. Again, this is something you generally want to play as Fast 9, so it's not something that you want to really get to if you don't have the econ for it. But Yordle is going to be the best way to get through this. And I know Yordle got nerfed. A lot of questions I get asked is also, it's like, is Yordle still good after the patch? Yeah, it is plenty good. And this is still the best comp you can play. So next up, we have a reroll comp that I'm sure I'm going to get some flack for recommending, just because I don't truly believe in this comp myself. But the stats on the comp do really well as I've actually gotten some recommendations from like really good players that I respect, to play this comp, so it can't be like completely terrible, honestly. And it is a reroll comp, and like most people don't get to play reroll comps this set right now, so like I felt like recommending this was pretty apt. It seems to be fairly powerful. I did not have success with it personally when I played it, but again, like my personal experiences aside, I do think this comp is probably worth recommending. So this comp is pretty basic. You're just rerolling on 6 for Ashe Tryndamere. To unlock Tryndamere, you have to have 2 items on Ashe, and then Ashe Biss is going to be Rageblade, plus Kraken, plus Last Whisper. Again, 3 bows. And then you're going to need another bow for Tryndamere. I don't know. This comp is so kind of niche to me because the itemization for it is really tough, as well as the spots you find yourself playing in is also hard. But this is like the simplest comp probably in the entire video, just because it's your kind of standard 2-cost reroll comp. You play a comp like this on 6. If you hit Swain, you can replace like Darius with it, and then you get Juggernaut instead of Defender. And then on 7, you play Nico. Like, fairly simple stuff, and then you cap out around 5 costs as per usual. As you go level 8, level 9, you're just going to play like Shyvana, you're going to play Lucian, you're going to play Kindred, and yeah, you're good to go. Finally, we have this comp, which is just going to be the Yunaara comp. This Yunaara main carry comp is probably one of the lowest cap comps in the video, just because it is going to be another level 8 comp where you're not going to focus too much on like being level 9, just because you're going to play this comp from like a low roll spot. So notice that the only 5 costs I put here are Ornn, which functionally is a ward and trade bot for your Braum, and Set, who's easy to unlock even on 8. So this comp's pretty simple. You just want to be building like your standard like Rageblade Kraken on a backliner in the early game, and then eventually you transition to something like this. Make sure you unlock your Set. He's pretty easy to unlock. As soon as you're level 8, you can unlock him, and it works on neutrals. So only 1 unit in the front 2 rows of the battlefield. You can do that at any time. Just make sure you remember to do it. Kobuko is a little bit tougher to unlock, but if you have him unlocked, then he's going to be the best unit to fit in the slot. But otherwise, like any random bruiser will do. You obviously lose Invoker for your Lissandra, but for the most part, it'll perform fine enough, right? There's like a couple variations of this board depending on what upgrades you have. Obviously, it's like not every time will you have these specific 4 costs upgraded. So if you have like Taric 2 we're not going to pass on playing a Taric 2. We can try to find a way to fit him in. Take out Warden in this case, maybe. Maybe we, like, set is going to look like a Shen, because maybe we want Bruiser, and then this can look like something else as well, right? It could be a 5 cost, could be, could be the Ornn, could be your Warden in that case, could be Kindred. You can also take out your Freljord. This is not like so important that I would like put too much emphasis on it, but something I would note is like a mistake a lot of players make, myself included, is I'm too susceptible to getting baited by the positioning of this Freljord, where I clump my entire team and then the enemy puts a Swain here and my entire team gets stunned twice and then I can't play the game, or like a Fiddlesticks or like a Scent, right? A lot of AoE. So try not to like clump your team too hard around this. Like you can stack some value. Like I would position something like this if it makes sense, and just get a little bit of value on your Freljord. But yeah, it's not going to be the most important thing. Defensive items on Wukong's fine. Utility items on Lissandra's fine. Carry items on Lissandra's also totally fine. So you can go Shojin, Deathcap, JG, you know, your standard carry items. Your Yunaara items are slightly more important just because she's more dependent on items. Like your Lissandra ends up being able to perform fairly fine with random items. And then yeah, your standard tank items on Wukong, a little bit of utility with Even Shroud. Sunfire is like kind of fine in the case that you don't have Morello. And yeah, pretty basic stuff, honestly. Like the Ionias, there are, again, a rough tier list of different Ionias that kind of matter. But because, like, I don't think it matters too much. Like, you are pretty much only playing this comp from low roll anyway, and you don't really expect to win. I would say, like, it doesn't matter too much. The Gold Ionia and EXP Ionia happen to be the best, but, like, that's for a reason completely outside of this comp. So, like, if you so happen to be playing Ionia because of the econ versions of the trait, then you can just stick to it and play this comp. But ultimately with those econ traits, you can just pivot out into something more powerful as well. So yeah, that's the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, please leave a like and a comment, or if you guys have any feedback, and subscribe. If you guys want to check me out playing some of these comps, I'm doing quite well on ladder right now, probably around top 10-ish, I want to say. You guys can check me out on Twitch. Again, it'll always be in the description down below. I'm going to be doing coaching later today. So if that's something you guys are, you know, interested in, obviously you guys can just catch my stream. Probably a VOD of it will be released on my YouTube as well. And yeah, until next time, peace out, guys.